This is John Gilroy from the Federal Tech Podcast.
And this is Tom Scurlock with Talend.
Today, we're going to talk about data, the last frontier. Hit the music, Manny.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, where industry leaders share insights on innovation with a focus on reducing cost and improving security for federal technology. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is Tom Scurlock, Regional Vice President of a company called Talend, T-A-L-E-N-D, and the website, just like it sounds, talend.com. And we're going to talk about data, the last frontier, and talk about hybrid cloud and security. But first, I would be remiss if I did not tell the audience that we are recording this at Caboose Brewery in lovely downtown Vienna, Virginia. Why here? Surrounded by tech companies, what better place to talk about data management than right here? So, Tom, could you give us maybe a 30-second overview of what Talend can do for federal agencies?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Talend's been around for about 18 years now, and we are a data management platform. So what we do is when federal agencies, or anyone in public sector for that matter, has a need for moving to a modern platform for managing any of their data use cases, Talend can come in. So we started out as a ETL company, and we have branched out to becoming a full stack data fabric.
I think everyone knows that there's a mandate in every conversation, whether it's at the grocery store or at the car mechanic, because you got to say artificial intelligence. You got to say artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence. Even at a brewery, I'll bet they use artificial intelligence there, maybe for the hops or something. And so, from the big picture here, data management, yes. I would say most people think that artificial intelligence is going to impact many parts of technology, and one of the most logical parts would be data management. So where does Talend fit in this picture?
Talend is right in the heart of the AI movement that's going on right now. It's been around for a while, but since data is required to feed the models for AI and machine learning, and we manage data, and more specifically, we deal with data quality and data governance and the movement of data. That's where we come in. So when you've got a use case that involves AI of some sorts, you're trying to do some type of predictive analytics or create some language model, you need the data that's feeding that to be accurate, to be precise, to be clean, and that's what Talend does.
Well, here we are at the Caboose Brewery, and I'm sure if we talked to the brewmaster, he would say, good hops, good beer. And for artificial intelligence, maybe they say, good data, good results. Because if you're basing conclusions on assumptions of good quality data, you could be led down the bad road, couldn't you?
Absolutely. It's not just the data, it's the people on staff doing it as well. I mean, that and the policies that you and frameworks that you have around your AI initiative. So it's all combined, and that's where Talend can come in. So we help with the data, but you also need the people in place who know what they're doing, and you also need the policies in place in order to manage the framework for what you're doing with AI and ML. And oftentimes, that's what's lacking, is that you don't have the correct policies, or you don't have the right initiatives, you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, or you don't have the right people, or people move from one agency to the next, or they move into private sectors, so you just get inconsistencies there. So Talend can help with all of that.
Tom, this is, of course, the Federal Tech Podcast, so I got to talk about podcasting a little. In the podcasting world, there are regular downloads and there are IAB downloads. And normally that's fewer downloads, and people want to know why. So what the IAB does, it's an advertising bureau, and they take and they deduplicate all the different listeners, so you just have the real true listener. So if you start listening to podcasts, then you stop, then you go home and start listening, and you finish it up in the car or something, you just get reported as one download. And so I would imagine that deduplication's got to be a big part of all this data you're collecting.
Oh, it happens all the time, and that's where the data quality comes in, because when you're doing data quality type workloads, you get a lot of deduplication, and that's where things like change data capture and other things become important, because you're only dealing with the data that's actually changed. You're not dealing with all of it. And the more it does get duplicated, the more opportunities for mistakes and corrections that are needed. So I completely agree with that. The more your data gets duplicated, or the more people that touch that data, the more chances there are for that data to be what we consider not clean or unhealthy.
Well, Tom, one of the principles of podcasting, believe it or not, is to involve the audience. So I'm going to involve the audience here. If you're listening to this and you've got a computer near you, why don't you go to Google Trends and type in artificial intelligence for the last 20 years, and then right next to it, compare it with a term called data reliability. What you'll find out, we have a hockey stick here in the last 6 months for artificial intelligence, we know that, but the interest in data reliability has been flat.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing is they're looking at artificial intelligence and not focusing at all on the data quality. I mean, that's a conclusion I would have.
Absolutely. And I think the latest is CIOs and CEOs say that they trust their data only about 40% of the time.
Whoa. That's a quote.
Yeah. And so when you're doing that, if any analytics that you're running or any mission that you're trying to accomplish, do you only want to be right 40% of the time? I wouldn't. I'd rather get that number up closer to 100%. So, especially when you're trying to earn the public trust and you're delivering services to the public, we demand our leaders to be good stewards of our taxpayer dollars. So, 40% doesn't cut it.
I have a podcast that focuses on satellites. And let me tell you something. You don't want to be 40% right when you're putting a satellite up in the air, because bad things happen with that kind of statistic, doesn't it? So what Talend does is can help federal agencies with improving the data and data reliability. There is a couple phrases that are tossed about in this world. One's called a data lake and one's called a data warehouse. So maybe for the purposes of this discussion, you can differentiate those for our listeners.
I don't know that there's really a difference between them. It's still, you have the snowflakes of the world where it's cloud data warehouse, and it's basically just a central location for all the data that you bring it in so you can run the analytics on it. Data lake is pretty much the same thing. They're used interchangeably. I would say warehouse has been around much longer. It's more the standard, but to me they're pretty much the same thing.
I think this whole idea of data reliability, and artificial intelligence, it all feeds into the big general picture for the federal government. And this general picture about cybersecurity was established a couple of years ago with the nation's cybersecurity executive order. And so having reliable data and solid data fits into this. Now, when it comes to artificial intelligence, I would imagine maybe they haven't devised policies yet as to the correct use for data reliability. Have they come up with policies for that yet?
No. And that's really the next, what I consider top priority when it comes to AI, is really the frameworks around it and the policies, because we've already know what we can do with AI. I mean, we're scratching the surface in terms of the applicability of it, but we know where we can go with it. But there's issues that can arise. There's bad actors out there that we have to watch out for. So we definitely, Congress and the feds and state and everyone involved, even the both public and private sector, need to come up with a unified set of policies and compliances around AI. And if we don't, it's going to be the Wild Wild West out there. And bad actors are going to take the lead on it, and we won't see the value from AI that we need to see, or that we can see.
Well, I think this is the early stages, the incipient stages here of coming up with some policies. There is a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights that you probably have heard of. And I think what they're trying to do is, it's just a draft, really. It's just, as I say, a blueprint. They're trying to come up with some suggestions and policies for safe and ethical use of artificial intelligence for data. They talk about data privacy here. And there's some people that critique it as being too conservative, and some people critique it as being too liberal. So you really can't win, can you?
No. Yeah. I think if you're going to err, at least initially, go too far, you can always rein it back. if you don't go far enough, then it opens up the opportunity for, as you say, unethical practices when it comes to AI. And where that line is, I don't think anybody knows right now, because AI is just really, it's been around for a long time, but last October with chat, it just took way off in terms of the public. And once the public starts to see, oh, hey, what is this? What are we talking about? They're going to explore more. So you're going to have more people using it, more data feeding these models, more technologies that are participating in AI-related initiatives, but there's no consistency. And so for me, it's kind of like, I look at it, I'll use a bowling alley or a golf course, in the middle. How you knock down those pins doesn't really matter. You can go left side, middle side, right side, but you don't want to be in the gutters. And we got to really put the framework around that lane or that alley to make sure that we're not in the gutters when it comes to AI.
I've been doing reporting on federal technology for decades here, and usually it's like a little corner of little nerds talking about certain isolated instances. But now, when it comes to artificial intelligence, there's hearings up on Capitol Hill. And, I don't have a transcript of exactly what the hearings took place, but I think they were in the middle of May. They had some hearings. And what I think's going on is that, you go in the schoolyard and the bully beats you up, okay? And you go there the next day and you have friends with you, or you're prepared. I think what's happened is the government has seen what's happened to social media, and maybe they didn't get in early enough on social media to maybe give it some guidance and some rules. And so I think they're trying to come up with some kind of a blueprint, or again, maybe some ideas of how to control this. And I'm just wondering if some people are overstating the risks of artificial intelligence. I mean, there's some people that are making some serious statements about this, aren't they?
There are some serious statements being made that within the next 15 or 20 years that, it's more like a fantasy or sci-fi where it turns on us. And I don't know the answer to that. I know that the acceleration and pace at which AI is moving right now is incredible. It's like the pace of data. It just explodes on a daily basis. And then the potential uses of AI move at the same pace. So the government is always behind the private sector, so they're playing catch up in terms of what guidelines they're going to put around this. I'm not even sure if they're going to be able to do it at this point, because it moves much more quickly than the pace of government can move. But they are at least trying. And then not only do you do it at the federal level, you have to do it at the state level and local level, where a lot of innovation's taking place. And then you have to do it at the global level. So how do we have policies that are in place that manage what's going on in China or Russia or all of Europe or the South Pacific? It's not just here. We have to be concerned globally. So there's a lot of initiatives, or a lot of priorities, and a lot of issues to cover, and I'm not sure that they can do it quickly enough.
Well, in Europe, they're starting something over there. Talking about the impact of AI. I don't know how much it's effective, but they started at least over there. Let's go from the big to the small, see the application here from my federal listeners. So if you're listening to this podcast and you work for a federal agency and you're concerned about data quality, data reliability, maybe you went to Google Trends and ran this graph and found out that data reliability is not talked about much anymore. So what can Talend do around data quality and governance? And what are the success factors that my federal listeners can implement to be successful?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. Probably 80% of our business is, when it's not the legacy ETL type work or integration work, is in data quality or data governance. So I kind of couple those two together. But when it comes to data quality, that's pervasive in all of our products. It's not a separate tool. You don't buy it. We've built it into every layer of our tool stack on the Talend Data Fabric, and that's very unique. So, yeah, you don't have to be concerned, okay, if I'm doing a data services or I'm doing a data governance or I'm doing an integration-related use case, data quality is there. So for us, it's good. And where that comes into play is operational excellence. How quickly can you move data? Who's touching that data? Are you mitigating risk? So, the fines for, breaking compliances and regulations are in the millions. So we help deal with mitigating risk. And then analytics on top of that. So you're doing analytics on a daily basis to that mission. So that data that you're using to meet that has to be compliant. And then you shift that and you go into the governing aspect. That's just the overall system that's used to manage the data ecosystem and your data assets. Is it compliant? Who's touching it? You know everything. You've got the framework, the policies, and the procedures for managing that system, because if that's broken, then it doesn't matter what data is being in. Your systems aren't going to be able to support that. So where Talend comes in is our platform includes data quality as well as compliance in our data catalog product.
Tom, when I was in high school, they forced us to read Shakespeare. I remember this one phrase, it was trippingly in the tongue. He'd say it trippingly in the tongue. And then when you described what Talend did, you were using a phrase, trippingly in the tongue, Talend Data Fabric. And you said it real fast.
Yeah.
Like, Talend, it probably in the brewery here, they'd say, get 2 pounds of hops.
Yeah.
What do you mean 2 pounds of hops? What kind of hops? And so maybe for the listeners out there, they're not familiar with this data fabric term. So what is it, and what does it mean for this whole idea of data integrity?
Great question. It's really important because this is what differentiates Talend from a lot of niche type technologies in the market. So it's data fabric. You can take what Gartner says or any of the industry, but essentially what it is a unified, future-proof data management system. So it's a platform. It's a set of tools that combined give you the ability to deal with any type of use case when it comes to data, and it's interoperable with any technology that's in the market. So where Talend comes in is we kind of play in all three. So we're integration. So we do it. I mean, that's our bread and butter. It's our legacy. There's companies that are technologies that just do integration, but they don't do data services, so they don't deal with APIs. Well, the Talend Data Fabric has a API and data services component to it. And then finally, we deal with what we've already talked about, which is data governance. And so in that middle, Talend's data catalog and our CDC components deal with the governance aspect. So it's a unified platform. You're not bolting on different technologies to make that work. It's all in one platform. And then on top of that, what's even better is it's cloud. So it's we can deal with multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, so on-prem and cloud. Any initiative that you're looking to do, we can do it. So AWS and Microsoft and Google, they're our partners. If you're going to use one, all three, Talend's a great fit. So again, the data fabric is a unified, future-proof data management system that helps manage any use case you have.
This morning on LinkedIn, there was a dispute between a person who was writing about Microsoft and a general. And he was pretty articulate for a general. I keep thinking like a Marine general. No, very articulate, went into it. And the implication is that one organization was throwing all the money towards Microsoft. And so I think commercial organizations and federal organizations got to be careful about distributing things in the cloud. So you may have a hybrid cloud environment that is, like you said, could be Google, could be Microsoft, it could be the Shakespeare cloud, it could be the Gilroy cloud, it could be several clouds. And so just because you can store data in several different cloud service providers does not mean that you can manage the data. It's one thing to get it in the cloud. It's another thing to coordinate and manage it. And so I don't think 5 or 6 years ago the concept of heterogeneous cloud management was even considered, but today it's almost mandatory because everyone's got different vendors they worry about and different data coming in, and so coordinating all that information, that's coming more and more to the front, isn't it, with all these different cloud service providers you have?
Yeah, and each one of them have their own set of tools. So
right.
If you start writing to those tools and you have to make a shift, you're in trouble because the cost of pulling that data and moving it to another CSP is very expensive. And so that's why most of the agencies and most of our customers are they're either the hybrid or multi-cloud, because it just makes sense. And then using the storage for either one of those CSPs and using Talend as our tool stack for the management of that data, because it's just we drive more to them and it's just more cost effective in the long run.
I think that's the lessons I learned from the little debate I saw online is that there's no dummies over in the DoD. They know what's going on.
Oh, yes.
And there may be people reporting on activities that may not be truthful, heaven forbid, in order to maybe position themselves better in the next contract. But we're in a hybrid world right now, whether you like it or not. It's heterogeneous, it's hybrid, it's whatever you want to call it. There's different clouds out there with different strengths and weaknesses, and you may run a large organization that one cloud service provider happens to have a set of tools that works better for one application than the other, but you have to be able to manage that, because then you're going to, guess what, back to square one. You're not going to be in compliance, and then you're in real trouble, won't you?
You'd definitely be in trouble. And not only that, you need to have the staff that's accredited and trained on both the platforms, which is resources is equally a key component to the management of the data. And we see that often where you have staff that's, they're just trained, made their career on legacy technology, and the movement to new technology is challenging. So finding the resources necessary to manage these systems is another priority for these leaders. And I would agree with you. My experience with anyone in the military is highly intelligent and knows I need to know what I'm talking about when I walk into a meeting with them, because they are so up to speed on anything that's going on. And so we have to come in with solutions that are going to meet their needs for the warfighter. And I always enjoy it, because I treat it as a learning experience when I get in there with them, because they just tell us exactly what's going on, and then we say, yeah, we can meet that need, and here's how.
Okay, we got a frivolous question at the end here, Tom.
Okay.
So 5 years from now, Rise of the Machines?
Is Terminator?
Skynet?
Yeah.
Or 5 years from now, just like John, it's just like a calculator. All it is just a tool that can help you.
No,
so
I think
which way are we going to be?
I think it's closer to the first.
Rise of the Machines with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
no.
I don't know if it's Skynet, but it's certainly it's moving quickly, and the pace and acceleration of AI, as it just becomes every day around us, it's already there. I just think it's going to become even more prevalent. So it's almost going to be like an assistant that's just sitting right next to you, and it's going to help with a lot of things, and some things it's not going to be able to do. So to me, it's we're going to see fast acceleration in healthcare, in defense, in cyber, and probably in transportation. That's where I think we'll initially see the advancement with AI. And that's a good thing, in my opinion, because if we can treat disease more quickly, and if we can fight wars more quickly with less death and less blood, I think that's a good thing. And if we can move people around more quickly and be predictive around weather and location, that's a win for me.
Well, Tom, the next time you're on the show, you'll have to give us the exact date when Skynet's going to take over, because I have to got to plan for this.
Yeah, January 25th, 2027.
Whoa, we're committed there. You've been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Tom Scurlock, Regional Vice President at Talend.
This is Jordan Burris from Socure. Listen to episode 71 of Federal Tech Podcast to learn more about identity verification.
Thanks for listening to the Federal Tech Podcast. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.